I'm sure most of us remember in Dragon Ball Z that Burter was constantly hyped up as the fastest character in the universe, and we all know now that was a massive lie. But how far off was he actually? I decided to rank every character from fastest to Burter so we can know his true rank in Universe 7. Now, obviously, Burter is dead after Namek, so we'll only include characters that were alive or technically existed while he was alive. You can't expect the poor guy to know that 2 half-Saiyans born over a decade after his death would outpace him before middle school. The characters that did exist will also be limited to their speed at that time. Can't include any of their power or speed gains from after his death for basically the same reason. Finally, we'll stick to canon characters, and specifically those found in Universe 7, since he's only talking about being the fastest in his universe. At number 1, and no surprise, we have Whis, who has unsurpassed combat speed in Universe 7 and pretty damn good travel time in space, though sometimes he does seem to travel much faster than others, despite saying it's always the fastest he can go. Just in case this isn't clear, Whis is in Universe 7 before Burter's death, and even likely before his birth, so he counts for this list despite him not being introduced to the series till later on. Which is important to know since number 2 would be Beerus. Despite lacking the speed of Whis or a full mastery of Ultra Instinct, Beerus continues to outpace and outperform the high tiers of Dragon Ball Super. So even though he's a bit lazy and in the middle of a 39-year-long nap when Burter makes his speed claim on Namek, he's still far beyond almost any other character in the universe. And if the Dragon Ball Super anime is anything to go by, he might be faster than Burter in his sleep. Though it is possible Beerus is slower than my number 3 pick, who's a bit controversial for me, Meris. Of course, Meris is going to be towards the top of this list as an angel in training, and obviously much faster than Burter, so the only reason this is controversial is if he should be above Beerus. With his natural command over Ultra Instinct, despite it not being at the same level as Whis, it should be at least debatable that his combat speed is at least faster than Beerus, though his travel speed might still be slower. Ultimately, the only placement that matters on this list is Burter. So if you think any of the characters above him could swap places, that's completely fine. It doesn't affect where he ends up at the end of this list. And we can't talk about Meris without mentioning Moro, who I think would be the next fastest on this list. Even without all his magic capabilities, Moro was able to at least keep up with Vegeta, who at that point was far beyond the speed of anything or anyone in practically all of Z, ignoring End of Z, of course. I can see an argument against Moro being this high due to his magic being more sealed away by this point in the story still, but I do think most would agree he should be pretty damn fast relative to a majority of this list, even with his magic aside. I will say at this point in the story, Moro is arguably slower than my number 5 pick, Broly. With no variety in his training and no exponential jumps in powers from transformations, Zenkais, or even just harsh battles, we can path Broly's growth as a fairly linear increase over time. So of the 48 years Broly spends training on Vampa before Dragon Ball Super Broly, we are 30 years in, which should mean Broly is around 2/3 as powerful as he would be in the fight on Earth in DBS Broly. It's important to know that Broly was learning how to use his power correctly in the fight on Earth, but even being 2/3 of the power and speed that caps out Chilai's modern scouter, we have a character more than fast enough to be this high on the list. For number 6, I have Majin Buu. Despite being sealed away, he's still alive and exists on Earth. The only reason Buu is this low is because he doesn't have the required energy to unseal himself yet, meaning he's weaker than the Buu that solos Dabura, Gohan, and Vegeta, which is why he's lower than Broly. But if Supreme Kai, who's casually stronger than Frieza, is scared of an early revival of Buu, then he should still be far stronger and more importantly faster than someone like Burter. Now, Majin Buu counts because he was in Universe 7, but with Dragon Ball Daima confirming the Demon Realm is detached from Universe 7 and actually predates the multiverse, any other residents of the Demon Realm won't be on this list unless we know they were in Universe 7 at the time of Burter's statement. Going to more of Babidi's minions, and someone who worked for Babidi that's definitely from Universe 7 is the mythical beast Yakon, who is number 7 on my list. Due to his reputation as a powerful mythical beast and someone strong enough to once again scare Supreme Kai, we have a character that's pretty obviously faster than most other beings in Universe 7. I should mention, while Yakon is definitely from Universe 7, his age isn't known, so it's possible he wasn't around during the time of Burter, but it's extremely hard to be certain. Considering his reputation was enough to be known by Shin though, despite Shin not knowing Yakon was under Babidi's control for likely years at that point, I'd say the probability of this mythical beast existing for a long time is pretty high, so I feel fine putting him on the list. I'm making a similar concession for the final minion of Babidi on this list, Pui, or his better manga name, Pocus, who is my number 8 pick. Once again, Supreme Kai is extremely afraid of Pui, thinking they need to team up against him despite seeing how strong Gohan was at the tournament already, and of course being far stronger than Frieza himself. We know that Pui is the champion of Planet Zune and likely has been under Babidi's control for some time, but it's hard to be certain how fast he was before Burter died, which was about 12 years before the Buu Saga. Personally, based on Pui seeming relatively old and Planet Zune never being conquered by the Frieza Force and Pui being its champion, I'm willing to give it to him. Now, if you disagree with me using Pui and Yakon on this list, I don't blame you. Just move Burter up a couple of places at the end of the video if you feel that strongly about it. With that out of the way, we should be back to characters that hopefully everyone can agree on, with number 9, Supreme Kai himself. He's guaranteed to be around during the time of Burter's death, and since he's one of the Supreme Kai that he says could handle Frieza easily, there's no reason to doubt his speed when compared to Burter of all people. While Supreme Kai should be a given, I think my next pick might be a bit more controversial, but given the context, I believe it's pretty fair. At number 10, I have Kibito, the attendant to Shin, who, while likely weaker than Shin himself, seems confident enough in his own abilities to be beyond the level of any of Frieza's underlings. Remember, Kibito and Shin both actually know about Super Saiyan and have some expectations of it before their fight with Gohan, so they should understand any comparison they're making, like Kibito thinking Gohan is too powerful for a mortal, could at the absolute lowest be a comparison to Super Saiyan Goku on Namek, once again likely placing Kibito above Frieza, which is more than enough for this list. Speaking of the little tyrant, Frieza, in any form, is far faster than Burter, which is kind of where this whole meme starts from, so it makes sense he's number 11. Burter had to know his boss was faster than him, right? Even in Frieza's first form, his power level is likely around 10 times that of Burter, and as Vegeta says earlier in the arc, a higher power level doesn't just mean more strength, it also means more speed as well. So there's no world that Burter is even close to Frieza's speed. Now, what's even funnier is Frieza's little hovering throne thing might actually just be faster than Burter too. That chair probably blitzes Saiyan Saga Vegeta, and I'm not kidding. Then at number 12, we can't talk about Frieza without mentioning his only other canon family member, his father, King Cold. When Mecha Frieza and King Cold arrive on Earth, despite Frieza not being at full power as stated by Gohan, King Cold is a comparably large key to this suppressed Mecha Frieza, and considering that Gohan, Vegeta, and Piccolo seem to think they are no match for him, despite them all being stronger and faster than any member of the Ginyu Force by this point, it should be clear that King Cold is on another level. And with that, we've closed the gap enough to finally talk about characters in the main cast that were alive when Burter made his speed claim. Starting with our main character Goku, who's number 13 on this list. Being the one to outspeed and beat Burter, Goku is clearly faster than him. And that's not even including the fact that he can use Kaioken times 10 to further increase his power and speed. This puts his maximum power level at this point in the story at 900,000, which is just below second form Frieza and makes him far too much for any soldier in Frieza's army to handle or keep up with. My choice for number 14 is a bit tough to be sure of, but in a similar way to Broly, I think if we take Gas and chart a relatively linear progression of strength and speed until he easily beats Granola, before either make the wish that is, we can pretty confidently say with his instincts unleashed, Gas should be faster than Burter, especially given his desire to never lose again after his humiliating defeat to Bardock. Even at the time he fought Bardock, Vegeta thinks there's no world that Gas should have lost to him, which should put Gas with his instincts unleashed at around the power and speed of Frieza soldiers like Dodoria and Zarbon, or at the very least, Vegeta and Kui. So give him 25 years of training, the time between his loss to Bardock and Burter's death, and I think he should be faster than Burter, even if it's with the caveat of having no self-control. Next, we have Vegeta at number 15. But again, we can move Gas around on the list, so if you think Vegeta is faster, I don't blame you. After getting a Zenkai from Rakum's beatdown and Goku's Senzu Bean, Vegeta's power jumps far above anyone in the Ginyu Force, with V-Jump even putting his power level at 250,000. But if you don't agree with that number, I still think there's no way to argue that he's slower than Burter, and he of course got this specific Zenkai boost before he killed Burter, so it still counts. Then we have a weird character to think about for this conversation in Piccolo, who I'm putting at number 16. This is of course before he fuses with Nail, and he's only trained with King Kai for a few days, but somehow that's enough for an insane power increase. Nail thinks Piccolo's power in particular is astonishing before they even fuse confused despite him sensing the Ginyu Force before and only saying Piccolo's not yet comparable to Frieza. Considering how close Nail is in power to the Ginyu Force, aside from Ginyu himself that is, any power he'd consider astonishing should be faster than Burter. Beyond that, we have one guidebook that puts Nail's fusion with Piccolo at a 5 times multiplier, which would make Piccolo's power level at least 200,000 when arriving on Namek somehow. With that guidebook power level, or even just the narratively implied power Piccolo has, it's more than enough for him to easily blitz Burter by this point in the story. Number 17 is once again going to be controversial, but Avo and Kado are both characters stated to be on the same level as the Ginyu Force during their time in Frieza's empire. That alone wouldn't make them faster than Burter, but there's a reason they're only one spot on this list. These brothers can fuse into Akka, which increases their power tremendously, and considering these two start on the level of the Ginyu Force, even just doubling, which is very likely a lowball based on every other fusion in the series, their speed with a fusion would be more than enough to be faster than Burter. Also, yes, Son Goku and his friends return is canon. Speaking of the Ginyu Force, at number 18, we have Captain Ginyu, who's obviously way faster than Burter. I can kind of see Burter coping about Frieza being slower than him because he likely hasn't seen Frieza fight, but he fights alongside Captain Ginyu as a job. So I'm sure some of you think Captain Ginyu must be slower than him. I mean, it is Captain Ginyu himself who introduces Burter as the fastest in the universe after all. So maybe a classic combat speed versus travel speed argument works here. But based on both of their battles with Goku, it's just impossible that that's the case. Where Burter was getting blitzed by Goku, Ginyu was able to keep up pretty easily. There's even a similar moment where Goku is attacked by Jace, and while this leads to Burter getting blitzed by Goku, Ginyu is able to put Goku into a hold. There's just no way you read the manga or watch the anime and think to yourself, Ginyu must be slower than Burter after you see both of them in action. Hell, Ginyu is still surprised that Goku is faster than him, despite knowing that he beat Burter already. And finally, just barely cracking the top 20, we have the man himself, Burter. I'm being generous here and putting him above other members of the Ginyu Force, even though Goldo's time stop ability would make him faster via hacks, but if I did that, then every Ardrat would be faster than him due to instant transmission, and that's just too big of a mess. So outside of Ginyu, we'll just assume Burter is the fastest member of the team. So Burter was only 19 places off, and honestly, I thought he'd be way lower than that. The Demon Realm not being a part of Universe 7 really helped him out here. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and thank you so very much for watching.